Yes, let's go. So what is the, the topic of my presentation today? Right? So if I have to greet you today, can I move around, Elaine, or you want me to stick around here? All right, I'll stand here. I don't want to make your work any more harder than it is. I can greet you today, happy Sabbath, survivors. Correct? Because we have been battling with this crisis for the last 2.5 years. Correct? And we are still here standing. Amen? Amen. And maybe I can speak in behalf of everyone in WA that we are just so blessed that we live in Australia. And to be specific, to be living in this part of the world, WA, right? And to be more specific, to be living somewhere in Lismurdy. And we just see what is happening even in our neighbors, right? That they have to suffer all this lockdown. Right. But here is the question that I would like to share with you. That sometimes in a crisis like this, the Seventh Adventists are the one that is prone to accentuate the, oh, it's going to be Sunday law. Oh, the great time of trouble. I think that is what will happen. But should it be our primary concern when we are faced this kind of crisis that we face? But those are things that are coming. But the concern of my presentation today is about the here and now. All right? What is next for all of us the day after this crisis? Is this gonna change your priorities in life? I don't know. Is this gonna change your lifestyle? I don't know. But today, let me present to you this survey that was done in Lancashire, England. Where you come from? I chose this because I know that's where you come from. They made a survey on what is the first thing that they will do after this crisis. Are you ready? Right. It said, go on holiday. Introduce our 3 weeks old to our family and friends. Hug my son as tightly as I can. That's not bad, huh? That's not bad. Hug my grandchildren. Visit my parents and give them a hug. My dad has been ill with COVID-19, so we need to celebrate him getting through it. And what else? Go hug my daughter, son-in-law, and my gorgeous grandson and won't let go. Oh, this must be a good son-in-law. Hug all my friends and neighbors who have looked after me. I am high risk as I'm having chemotherapy. My friends and neighbors have been the best. That would be a good thing to be said about us, right? McDonald's, Nando's, and Albert Standish in one day. What is this Albert Standish? This is a pub, I think. And said, ring the fire brigade to remove me from the house because I will be too fat to get through the door. That's amazing stuff, huh? So the question is this: how will our lives look like the day after? Actually, when I entitled this presentation, my friend said, Pastor, that sounds like a movie title. And I Googled, thanks to Google, and actually it is. Yeah, this is a story about a fiction story of 1983 in the mid-1980s in the U.S., where it was in the brink of a nuclear war. And then, people are doing their job ordinarily, and then suddenly the unthinkable happened, and the bomb came down, the town and the residents were wiped out, and the movie ends with a despondent telephone call. Apparently, one survived, And this is what it says. This is how the movie ends. Hello, this is Lawrence, Kansas. Is anybody there? Anybody at all? Sometimes you can hear this cry because of this crisis that we have. I wonder, is there anybody there that cares for people? Anybody there that cares for her lonely? I hope we can entertain this question. And then, 21 years later, it was followed by the day after tomorrow. And the scenario is that the earth was, there was a worldwide storm that plunged the entire planet into a new ice age, where the heart of the plot of the story is this paleoclimatologist Jack has to go to New York because that is where his son was caught up with this ice, and he was inside the library, and as far as the story goes, that everyone was panicking, there's no hope, no one to save me. But Jack Hall's son said, no. My father promised that he is coming to save me, and I know he will keep his promise, which indeed he did. So in this crisis too, we have a father that promised us, right? He said, I'm coming back to take you with me. Now, actually, NASA was involved in making this film, but they were not allowed to make any comment on the likelihood that this event will actually happen. Now, from movie, let's go to reality. What do we make out of this crisis? That this will be remembered for a long, long time. What can we make out of this? Now, here is something, the lesson that I learned. This is one thing that stood for me. That something that we thought would be solid and strong and stable was anything but. That something that we thought that we can rely on when COVID hits. Now let me, this reminds me that when everything else failed, it almost did, isn't it? You can travel, you cannot move. The only thing that you're allowed to do is breathe, but you have to have mask and stuff like that. You can have all the money in the world, but what happened? Can you use it? You can have all the cars in the world. Can you drive it? It's an incredible scenario, isn't it? And in fact, on Christ, the solid rock I stand. All other grounds there are sinking sand. And that is what we experience, isn't it? Now this reminds me, let's take America. This is the #1 economy in the world. I think China now is. But the thing is, they are the #1 economy in the world, but they can do nothing to avert the economic onslaught that this caused. What you're looking at the board is those are the countries that the economy is compared to a state in America. That's incredible stuff, huh? So in other words, in UK, the economy of UK is compared to the economy of Los Angeles, California. In Canada, that is the economy as big as Texas, and so on and so forth. In other words, if you do business with America, one nation, you're actually doing business to an equivalent of 51 nations. That's how powerful they are. But were they able to prevent this crisis to happen to their country? They are actually at the top right now as far as the victim of people that died is concerned. Now let's go to the next one. This is the country with the mightiest military power on earth. Now, I looked at the expenditure that they have as far as the military expenditure. Look at this. It's incredible stuff. In 2020, the military spending of the Philippines is 3,470,000,000. That's right. Whatever. My math is not really good. In New Zealand, it's 4,291,000,000. In Australia, we are spending 26,300,000,000 in military spending in 2020. And look at America. They're spending 750 billion. So they are the number one, the mightiest military power on earth. But what happened? They cannot even fire a single shot against this unseen enemy. Maybe they have prepared for the wrong war. They didn't see this phantom adversary coming, and they were taken in their own game. The element of surprise. And everyone was surprised, wasn't it? Now this is the crisis that we are going through right now, right? Now let me take you to two mega disasters recorded in the Bible. And our focus will be not on the life before the crisis or the life during the crisis. But what we're going to discover is what happened to their lives the day after. Because maybe this will resonate with your life and my life. Because right now we are lucky that we have gone through this crisis alive. But it has a telling effect as far as I'm concerned. So, the first one is when Jesus Christ mentioned how this world will end. And he quoted two mega disasters that I'm talking about. And you're familiar with this. The Noah disaster, which is worldwide, in Sodom and Gomorrah, which is more localized. These are the scenarios that we have to look up to let us know whether his second coming is near or not. That was Jesus. Here comes Paul in the book of Romans. And without that seed that became the Savior of the world. And then Peter mentioned Noah and also mentioned Sodom and Gomorrah. What Peter did was he accentuated the ungodly life that they lived that brought this flood and the fire in these two disasters. But this morning our study is not so much on the lifestyle of the people before the disaster. I would like to draw your attention on the lifestyle mentioned the day after the crisis by the very people that survived because of God's grace. And I think you can agree with me that the reason that we survived, it is through God's grace. Amen? Amen. So what happened to the life of these people that survived after these two crises? Let's go. The first catastrophic event. We are familiar with this, right? After the flood, that is where I'm interested. And there were how many people that survived? 8 that survived. And then after the flood, the day after, Noah began to cultivate the ground and he planted a vineyard. Maybe he's got so much grapes that one day he made some wine. And drank some wine he had made. And he became drunk and lay naked inside this tent. It looks like it was some wine too many. This is basically the last activity of significance mentioned about Noah. Significant because the weight of this activity lies in the irony of it all. Let's hear Jesus explain. Matthew 24, what happened here? The cause of why Noah, there were only 8 people that were saved is because as in the days of the coming of the Son of Man, this history will be repeated again. And if we don't learn from this history, we are bound to commit the same mistake. For us in the days before the flood, they were eating and drinking and marrying and giving in marriage and so on and so forth. So they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage. That's what we're doing, aren't we? Is there anything wrong with that? No. But that only becomes a liability when that is what is engrossing your life at the expense of missing and looking at the coming Jesus. This is another way of saying that in spite of the warning given, do you think this COVID is a warning for us? I believe so. In spite of the warning given, the society as a whole were preoccupied about the usual business of life at the expense of saving their lives. And one of those activities that was given as a reason for why they were not ready for the coming catastrophe, getting drunk. And that was exactly what Noah was doing the day after the flood. And that's the last time that we heard about Noah. Noah was repeating one of the reasons why the crisis happened in the first place. Talking about learning a lesson, huh? Incredible stuff. That is Noah. Now let's go to, Jesus went on farther to emphasize 2 crucial dangers of being too consumed by day-to-day cares of life or going about life as business as usual at the expense of the kingdom of God. And he marked his statement by this decisive word, the word until, twice. See that? For us in the days of Noah, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered the ark, and did not know until the flood came and took them all away. So also will be the coming of the Son of Man will be. So what is the point? They failed to check in the boat. And the next one, they missed the boat altogether. Two things. They ignored the warning and they preoccupied themselves with the important many at the expense of the vital few. So also will the coming of the Son of Man be. Now, the second catastrophic event, we know this story. It's about Lot and his 2 daughters, right? The wife was there. Unfortunately, she was out of Sodom and Gomorrah, but Sodom and Gomorrah was not out of her life. So it made no difference. So, but God had listened to Abraham's request and kept Lot safe, removing him from the disaster that engulfed the cities of the plain. Afterward, the day after, look at this, guys. Lot left Zoar because he was afraid of the people there, and he went to live in a cave in the mountain with his 2 daughters. One day, the older daughter said to her sister, "There are no men left anywhere in this entire area. Where can you find a man in a desert, in a cave?" So we can get married like who? Like everyone else. And our father will soon be too old to have children. Come, let's get him drunk with wine, and then we will have sex with him. That way we will preserve our family line through our father. It means that never means would justify the ends, would justify the means, right? If you look at this statement here, there is in this, embedded is the desire to be like everyone else. This right after the disaster. Right? They left Sodom and Gomorrah. But Sodom and Gomorrah has not left them. The point? You can be inside the church, but if the world is still inside your heart, it makes no difference. It sounds like they have good intention, haven't they? Always remind me, somebody said that the road to hell is full of good intentions. Now, two catastrophic events. Every act of life, however small, has its bearing for good or evil. Now let's go now to the decision of Noah and then the decision of the daughters of Lot. What is the implication of this? There are what you call unintended consequences. Unintended consequences. Why? All right. Let me share this with you. This is the result of Lot's daughter having this sex with their dad. Thus, both the daughters of Lot were with child by their father. The firstborn bore a son and called his name Moab. He is the father of the Moabites to this day. And the younger, she also bore a son and called his name Ben-Ammi. He is the father of the people of Ammon to this day. So, as a result of that indiscretion, they wanted to be like others. It bare fruit. Then these fruits were the two nations of Moab and the Ammonites. The Moabites and the Ammonites. That is the result of the decision the day after the disaster. Right? Are you with me so far? Let's go to Noah. Let me just read to you from the Patriarchs and Prophets. The sinful conduct of his daughters was the result of the evil association of that vile place. Its moral corruption had become interwoven with their character that they could not distinguish between good and evil. Lot's only posterity, the Moabites, the Ammonites, were vile, idolatrous tribes, rebels against God, and the bitter enemies of his people. Now let's say how this interplayed with the nation, the people of God. Then this is what happened. When Noah got so drunk, his son, the youngest son, Ham, saw his father naked. So he told his two brothers, and what they did was they put a blanket on their shoulder, like this, and then they moved to where their dad is, backwards. And then leave the blanket, and then left without looking the nakedness. And then when Noah woke up, he learned what happened. And he cursed. This is another sermon anyway. But then the point is, Noah cursed Ham. And the result of this, Ham has got 4 children, as I will show you later. It says here, the posterity of Canaan descended to the most degrading form of heathenism. Why are we studying this? Let me connect the dots for you. These are the children of Ham. Cush, Egypt, Put, and Canaan. Are those names familiar to you? Egypt and Canaan? They were the sons of Ham that was cursed by the father Noah. How did that play in the journey of the people of Israel? Let me show you. Egypt, that's where they were slaves for how many years? 400 years. And then they traveled to where? to Canaan, right? And for 40 years, who is Egypt? The son of Ham. And who is Canaan? The son of Ham. And who are the Moabites and the Ammonites? The children of Lot. Grandchildren of Lot. So I want you to look at the interplay of that decision the day after in the journey of the people of God. Egypt, they enslaved the people of God for 400 years. And on their way to Canaan, two nations made their journey so hard and difficult. And who are they? They were the children of Lot, through the daughter. And then where did they go? They went to Canaan. And what did Canaan do to the people of Israel? They influenced them into this idolatry and adultery. And that's the reason why, at the end, they were sent to Babylon to be escaped. Did you see the interplay here? Hey? Seemingly innocent decision. Always remember this, that every decision that you and I make, it will always have unintended consequence, for better or for worse. Every act of life, however small, has its bearing for good or evil. We survived the crisis. We survived the disaster. The question is, what kind of life do we have the day after? In Egypt for 400 years, and this is terrible. Now let's go. Decisions were made with unintended tragic consequences. Now, in the crisis that we have, these are the unintended consequences too. Drinking in coronavirus isolation, experts warn Australians to monitor their intake. Why? As Australia went into COVID-19 lockdown, alcohol selling increased. It's tempting to drink in times of stress, but habits picked up now in this disaster could be difficult to break. Unintended consequence. What habit have you performed during this crisis that you should know is not really helping you in your journey with the Lord? ComSec reported spending this was 2020, right? March, when the lockdown was ordered. It was more than 20% of spending on alcohol in 1 week compared with the same time last year. And in the week to March 27, another week, spending at liquor store in Australia was up, how many? 86%. Now, why is this serious? Because this contributed to the increase of abuse at home. Do you see the unintended consequence? So that if we are not looking at what we're doing the day after the crisis, it will be even worse for us. In America, sale of alcoholic beverages in the United States have increased 55%. Our lives are stressful, and alcohol consumption can be a common way to self-medicate those stresses. Women, especially, women are more likely to use alcohol to cope with depression and anxiety. And I will not be surprised if women in Adventist church don't imbibe alcohol. I wonder how their credit card looks like, because they might be addicted to online shopping, right? I don't know. I'm just guessing. Yeah. So it looks like a disaster within a disaster is coming. Does it make sense? Yes. Unintended consequence. Okay, where are we? Here we go. The day after the lockdown, what's the first thing you will do? Remember the survey that we have done? That we have mentioned in the opening? Actually, I saved the best for last. Here is what the people in UK, in Lancashire, have in mind. It says, life after lockdown, what's the first thing you will do? Pub crawl should be number one. away for a weekend in the pub. I can see Noah here, right? Go to Dawson's in Kirkham. Do you know this? For a fish and chips.
I probably know that fish and chip shop.
The fish and massive pea lunch on the way to the Hand and Dagger. That's a pub with Jolly Molyneux. Book that weekend off and get sloshed. This is amazing stuff. After obviously seeing family, I am taking my 2-year-old to the zoo and pampering myself, having my nails, lashes, and brows done. It's amazing stuff, huh? What about you guys? How does your life look now, the day after? We survived, haven't we? We survived. I really thank God. But how is your life different before the disaster than after? Because if we don't learn, we will commit the same mistake that Noah did, that the children of Lot did. This is the reality of the day after the crisis. We can choose to go business as usual, like Noah after the flood, or Lot and her daughters after the fire. Or if we consider what Bill Gates said, no one who lives through pandemic, I will never forget it. Well, you won't, because when you look at your bank account now, it's gone through the roof. And it is impossible to overstate the pain that people are feeling now and will continue to feel for years to come. Isn't this an opportunity for the Seventh-day Adventist Church? Is it? How is your priority in life? Is it doing your nail in your brows again? Oh, baby, come on. What's going on? Or look at your neighbors and see what you can do for them. On Christ, the solid rock I stand. All other grounds are sinking sand. That includes your finances. That includes your bank. That includes your health. Whatever it is, they are all sinking sand. To drive home the point that the only solid rock that you can stand on and survive this crisis if you are established on the rock, which is Jesus Christ. This crisis will soon be over, I hope. It's tragic that it killed a lot of people, millions of them, but a greater tragedy awaits if you and me will go back to business as usual, that we continue living the life that we did before the crisis, that self again is the center of our lives, that we continue to define ourselves again by the material things of this world, that we continue to use people and love things and still call ourselves Christian. Now, that's tragedy with epic proportion. The virus killed not even, 3 million? It's still hovering at 3 million. But it will leave billions of people, dead people, walking. My prayer today is that maybe we can take a stock of our spiritual journey and accept the fact that the happiness that Hollywood offers are way, way inferior than what the Holy Word propounds. That the security that the world promotes is as insecure as the people who promotes them. And on the other hand, anything or anyone that is anchored on the rock is destined to last forever. May the Lord help us as we continue our journey the day after.